Part 57. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 561. Chapter 561, He is an outsider to begin with. Xiaoling looked at them with clear eyes. She now understands that these security guards are trying to get in trouble with her, probably because of the old man's instructions. The old man asked her to move, and she did. He asked her to live next door to Peizian for 3 years, and she stayed. She didn't expect that even so, the old man would still refuse to let her go, and would have to break them up by any means necessary. Blind party? Drive her away? She is not a persimmon that can be flattened and rounded by anyone. This is how you treat guests, she said in a cold voice. Okay, I'll go, no problem. Maybe I should contact my agent, investigate the invitation, and hold a media conference to let everyone know. Look at how Mr. Li, whom everyone respects, treats female artists without family background. The security guards looked at each other. Her threat was beyond what they could handle. If things really get serious, how should public opinion be calmed? The Li family is a wealthy family. If they bully one of their singers by relying on their great power, they will probably attract abuse from countless fans. This Miss Ye is not completely without a background. Who knows if her young master will go against his grandfather and support her in doing some crazy things. Ms. Ye, it won't be good for anyone if things get too big, the security guard said. Xiaoling just sneered. Wang Tao on the side also sneered. Why don't you let others talk about bullying? His eyes swept over the faces of the security guards, Miss Nangang and Gu Lin one by one, and finally landed on Xiaoling's delicate, palm-sized face. I'll take you out. Gu Lin was right. His biological mother was just a mistress, which made him ostracized in the Wang family since he was a child. He suffered countless losses from the head mother and his legitimate brothers and sisters, both overtly and covertly. His ordinary bloodline was incompatible with this prosperous and noble upper-class society. He was fed up with the hypocritical faces of these so-called celebrities. On the other hand, Xiaoling, although she was already a star-studded little queen, was happy with her grudges, and a glass of cocktail said he just poured it out, and he didn't even bother to pretend to be kind. The arrogance engraved in his bones suited him very well. Xiaoling turned her head, looked at him, and smiled brightly. Thank you. This banquet was frustrating from beginning to end. Fortunately, Wang Tao made her feel that she was no longer alone. Her eyes unconsciously drifted into the distance. Li Lei, why hasn't he come back yet? Let's go. Wang Tao motioned for her to hold his hand. You two, please stay this time. The security guard was in a dilemma, so he just let them go. What if there was really trouble? The old man would tear their muscles and skin them. What's left? Let them get out. On the side, Gu Lin was holding her wet chest with one hand. Her hair was messy, and she was furious. How dare this throw wine at me? My father will not let you go. Xiaoling didn't bother to talk to her at all. She stretched out her jade-white arm to hold Wang Tao's arm. From the diagonal stab, another hand stretched out and gently pulled her into his arms. Xiaoling smelled the familiar scent of that person, mixed with the faint smell of sunshine, tobacco, and flowers, which was intoxicating. Li Lei. She raised her head to look at him. The Li Lei in front of him was still wearing a light-colored formal suit and a neat tie. He was well dressed and his appearance was as handsome as the stars in the night sky. Not to mention Miss Nangang and Gu Lin, even Xiaoling, who often met Li Lei and was about to become an old couple, was so handsome that his heart skipped a beat. At this very moment, this handsome guy was looking at Wang Tao opposite him coldly. If looks could kill, then Wang Tao would have died countless times. Wang Tao felt a little guilty and silently gave him an innocent expression. This second young master Li is so unkind. He even held a blind date banquet and still occupied Ye Xinling. If he occupied so many girls by himself, would he be able to give other men a way to survive? Moreover, second young Master Li couldn't even protect his own sister well. If he, Wang Tao, hadn't saved the beauty just now, wouldn't his sister have been alone and bullied? Unfortunately, Wang Tao only dared to say these words in his heart. Under Li Lei's murderous gaze, he silently took a few steps back. Li Lei then looked down at Xiaoling, his eyes softened and could turn into water. Here, hazelnut cake. He handed a small plate of soft and delicious cake to her, and let go of her body at the same time. She took the cake and stood up straight. I wanted to ask him why he had been gone for so long, but then I remembered that this was his blind date party, and I felt aggrieved unconsciously. "Why are you giving me cake?" she whispered. Looking at her look, Li Lei guessed that she knew the truth about the banquet and wanted to cut the person who sent her random invitations into pieces. He opened his mouth, wanting to explain to her, but Miss Nangong, who was watching the battle, already said in an elegant voice, "Young Master Li? You are the second young Master Li, right? Nice to meet you. I am Nangong Kinja." Nangong Kinja? Only then did Li Lei notice that there was someone next to him. She was a beautiful woman wearing a silver white floor-length dress. Her temperament was somewhat similar to that of Sutang, but because she was a noble lady from an aristocratic family, she was more pampered and arrogant than Sutang. Why did Xiaoling happen to run into her? Before the banquet, the old man had shown him the information of several famous ladies, all of whom were his favorite candidates for his granddaughter-in-law, including Nangong Kinja. Kinja's personality is somewhat similar to Sutang's. You and Sutang have gotten along well over the years, and you should have no problem with Kinja, the old man said. If you don't like Sutang's low-key behavior, try dating Kinja. She comes from a noble family and is a proud woman. The old man has carefully thought about Li Lei's marriage. Sutang is still a candidate for his grandson's wife, but if Li Lei really doesn't like it, he can try another woman, no matter who it is, as long as it's not Yesin Ling. The old man planned to sweep Yesin Ling out of Li Lei's life as quickly as possible. How could Li Lei not know what he was thinking? However, he could not refuse this blind date party. Beside the waterside pavilion, the jade railings are cold, the breeze ruffles Nangong's elegant hair, and the beauty is graceful. She held out her hand reservedly, waiting for him to kiss her hand. Li Lei glanced at Xiaoling's face and did not dare to make any mistakes. He only stretched out his hand and shook Nangong Kinja's hand gently. Xiaoling's expression improved a little. Nangong Kinja had a dark look on her face. What did this man mean? Does he look down on himself? However, he would not give up no matter what. The Nangong family, like the Li family, had developed overseas for generations, but its status was much lower than that of the Li family. It was her duty as the daughter of the Nangong family to marry into the Li family. Besides, the man in front of me is so handsome. She braced herself up and smiled. Second young Master Li is really a foreigner. You are an outsider. Why are you pretending to be familiar? The person who spoke was Xiaoling, who sneered softly. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 562. Chapter 562. Don't hang yourself from a tree. Nangong Kinja's face froze for a moment. She did not expect that this female singer, who could not even be called Shiyuan from a famous family, would dare to mock her like this. To what extent did Li Lei pamper the singer? Even if a person is so ignorant, he even dares to contradict his future wife? Nangong Kinja glanced at Li Lei, hoping that he could give his mistress some rules. It's a pity that she was destined to be disappointed. Li Lei just said softly, "Xiaoling, don't make trouble." What am I making trouble for? Li Lei was helpless. If Xiaoling was allowed to get angry, the situation would be really difficult to deal with. He said, "Just sit here and eat cake. When the banquet is over, I will take you home." Xiaoling's expression looked better now. "Well, There were so many Yingyingyans present, but he was still thinking about her in his heart. She was the only one who received the treatment of being sent home. There was a bit of a smile in her eyes, she tilted her head, and her voice was soft and soft. Okay, in front of outsiders, it was better not to make trouble with him. As for the issue of this banquet, we can wait until we get home in the evening. It's not too late to get up and interrogate him properly. Besides, Nangang Kinja saw their flirting, and felt a great sense of crisis in her heart. This female singer is not simple. Much more difficult to deal with than a stupid young lady like Gulin. It was obvious that second young Master Li didn't like Gulin at all. Gulin was splashed with wine and he didn't say a word of concern. But what about the other woman? He only showed a little jealousy, but he was coaxed and coaxed nicely. Thinking of this, Nangang Kinja adjusted her expression and showed the most elegant and noble look. I didn't know that young Master Li and Miss Ye were so familiar. It was just a misunderstanding. Miss Ye, I was presumptuous just now, and you insulted me. You deserve to be drunk. I'm really sorry, please don't take it to heart. She is not used to being a low-key, and it also depends on who she is in front of. She doesn't mind putting herself on the weaker side in front of men. People have always favored the weak, and the more delicate a girl is, the easier it is to take advantage of her. Just know that you deserve it. Xiaoling was unreasonable. Li Lei had a headache. Xiaoling didn't know it, but he knew very well that the Nangang family had a rich background and was also involved in the underworld. It would be quite troublesome to really care about someone. He didn't want Xiaoling to get into such trouble, so he whispered to stop. Xiaoling. Xiaoling didn't expect that he, who had always indulged her, would be like this. She bit her lip for a moment, feeling a little aggrieved. An imperceptible smile appeared in the depths of Nangang Kinja's eyes. Sure enough, one should show weakness in front of men. Whoever is strong will offend others. No, she had already subtly suppressed the female singer. These rich and famous ladies have been preparing for marriage since childhood. When they were at home, many of them learned the unique skills of fighting for favors and mistresses from their mothers. At this time, Nangang Kinja continued her efforts and said softly to Li Lei, I just heard Linlin say that second young Master Li also came back from abroad. Now his career is booming and he has surpassed the emperor who has deep roots in the city. It's really amazing. I have recently returned to China and I am not used to the customs here. I wonder if I can ask you how to adjust myself. Li Lei knew she was trying to strike up a conversation. Xiaoling also knew it. She grabbed Li Lei's arm with one hand and looked at Nangang Kinja and Gulin, both of you, your clothes are already dirty. Why don't you change them? She didn't want them to be harsh. Lei ran away. Nangang Kinja seemed to have noticed this, she lowered her head and glanced at herself, then at Gulin beside her, and laughed, it's really true, thank you Miss Ye for reminding me. I'm not familiar with the place here, Shao Li, I need to trouble you as the host, can you take Linlin and me to the dressing room, she asked as the situation went. Xiaoling was extremely angry. She had never seen anyone so shameless before. If a woman went to change clothes, why would she ask Li Lei, a grown man, to show her the way? You said you wanted to eat cake with me. Xiaoling tugged on Li Lei's sleeves aggrievedly. Li Lei was a little embarrassed. He glanced at the security guards next to him and sighed in his heart. Does he want to stay and eat cake with her? How wonderful would it be to enjoy the flowers and the moon with the woman he loves? Unfortunately, he can't. The old man has given a death order. If Xiaoling is allowed to interfere with the blind date banquet, the two of them must look good. The concession now is to better protect her. He gently opened her hand and said, I'll leave with Miss Nangang for a while, and I'll come find you when I'm free. The smile in Nangang Kinja's eyes is deeper. She is very confident in her charm, in terms of family background, scheming, and beauty. How can this little female singer be her opponent? She extended her hand gracefully again, and this time, Lei supported her. Let's go. Brother Lei. This time, Gulin on the side also felt aggrieved. Why are you supporting Sister Nangong and not me? She was obviously even worse when the cocktail was thrown at her, and she was countless times more embarrassed than Nangong Kinja. Until now, the body is still dripping with water. Because I'm the female guest I'm meeting for the first time. Nangong Kinja's voice was soft and she comforted Gulin with a faint smile. Second young master Li is being polite to me. Linlin, you are so familiar with each other, and second young master treats you so well. Naturally, it's more casual. The words made Gulin excited. Yes. How could Li Lei not see Nangong Kinja's little thoughts? But he didn't point it out. Anyway, he didn't like Nangong Kinja or Gulin, and he didn't make any difference to anyone he supported. From the grandpa's point of view, he would prefer him to support Nangong Kinja. After all, Gulin is not a good candidate for a granddaughter-in-law because of her and brainlessness. The group of people gradually walked away. Xiaoling watched them leave, the original sharpness and look in her eyes dimming little by little, and she lowered her eyes. Here you go, hazelnut cake. Wang Tao noticed that she was in a bad mood and brought her the cake on the table. I won't eat, she said dully. I told you just now, don't hang yourself on a tree. The two of them had a fight with the same hatred. After becoming more familiar with each other, Wang Tao spoke in a more casual tone. People like Er Xiaolia, there is no autonomy in marriage, unless he can one day kill all the old people in the family and turn the whole family into his own. By the way, why didn't you have a good relationship with Pei Ziyan like him? There are very few people who are rich and powerful and have the ability to marry you. No, they must be unique. The divorce between her and Pei Ziyan made a big fuss and everyone knew about it. Xiaoling looked down at the water outside the jade railing and said nothing. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 563. Chapter 563 Breaking the Promise. Wang Tao stayed silent with her. The banquet was very lively, and the gentlemen and ladies coming and going were fragrantly dressed, showing the dignity and extraordinariness of the famous nobles. Occasionally, those who caught a glimpse of the two people here would sweep their eyes over without stopping, as if they had seen some insignificant dust. The night is getting darker. One after another guests are leaving. Li Lei never showed up. She called twice, but he didn't answer either. Wang Tao stretched out his hand to her. Let's go, I'll take you home. He really felt sorry for this girl. Wasn't it because her family background was inferior to others? Those who were lucky enough to have a good pregnancy bullied her like this. He was not fair for her, but also for himself. It didn't matter that his background was not noble enough, he could still be loved and respected by others. He said, I drive a Bugatti Veyron and I won't embarrass you. Although he had a son outside the family, in order to show her kindness, the mother-in-law of the house not only did not deduct him in food and clothing, but also it gave him enough luxury. When Xiaoling heard what he said, she put away her depressed mood and smiled. It seems that Master Wang is living a very happy life. Even Li Lei just modified a Land Rover by himself, and he might not have Wang Tao's. Bugatti is worth money. Wang Tao also laughed. The old lady gave it to me, why don't you open it? I should help you spend so much money. He looked like a dandy. In the Wang family, he can only be a playboy. There are two capable brothers above him, and there is a younger brother and several sisters of noble blood. Who can allow him to get a share of the family business? He doesn't even have equity, and he can't get involved in the company's affairs. The master and mother will regularly give him a large pocket money, plus a few luxury cars, watches and cruise ships for him to eat, drink, and play. When outsiders talk about it, They all say that the mistress of the house is good to him, but it is he who fails to live up to his expectations and can only rely on the family to support him. This is so sad that it is not enough for outsiders to understand. Xiaoling didn't understand the twists and turns, but she heard the slight sarcasm in his tone and said with a smile, "It seems you are not satisfied yet. You are now a little queen. You wear a high-end custom-made dress and expensive diamonds. I heard that you even live in a villa." Wang Tao didn't drink much wine, but he seemed a little drunk. "Miss Ye, are you satisfied?" Xiaoling was slightly startled, and suddenly she looked at the prince in front of her in a different light. "Philosopher. Okay, I'll go and sit in your Bugatti Veyron." She put the empty crystal wine glass aside and stood up. At the banquet, everyone had dispersed, and the cleaning staff began to clean the venue. Scattered starlight scattered, a bit lonely. She followed him towards the parking lot at the back door. Because the venue had already dispersed, the parking lot was very empty, with only a few luxury cars parked under rows of European-style street lights. Her eyes swept over each one, and deep in her consciousness, she hoped to see the familiar modified off-road vehicle. It really made her see it. The shadow of the street light came out, and a majestic-looking off-road vehicle parked silently. The body of the vehicle was submerged in the boundless darkness, with only a small piece of the body exposed, which looked like the back of a beast under the dreamy light. Xiaoling narrowed her eyes slightly. Wang Tao also saw the car and looked at her expression. "Lei." "Yes," she responded softly, and her originally gloomy eyes brightened a little. "He probably didn't answer my call because he had something to do. He is still at the venue. I will look for him again. I'm sorry, Mr. Wang, in the future. I'll take your car again when I have the chance." Wang Tao raised his eyebrows. "If there is a chance in the future?" "You said it too early." He stretched out his hand and pointed in the direction of the off-road vehicle. "Look, someone is coming." Xiaoling looked over and saw two people walking slowly on the path beside the off-road vehicle. The man was wearing an expensive, hand-customized formal suit with a handsome face. The woman was carefully holding the skirt of her silver-white dress with one hand. Tilting his head slightly, talking and laughing with the man. "It's Li Lei, and Nangang Kinja." Xiaoling's heart ached slightly, as if she had been pricked by a tiny flower thorn. She saw them stop by the off-road vehicle. Li Lei opened the passenger door for Nangang Kinja. Nangang Kinja got in the car. He went around to the driver's cab and got in too. The off-road vehicle drove away. "Now, you can only sit in my Bugatti Veyron," Wang Tao said. "Thank you, I will go back by myself." She was in a bad mood and didn't want to socialize with others. She walked forward in a daze. Suddenly, her feet twisted. "Hey," was Wang Tao's panicked voice, "be careful." Unfortunately, it was too late. Xiaoling missed a step and fell down. Her white arms rubbed against the rough gravel road, feeling a burning pain. What was even more painful was the ankle, which was heartbreaking. Wang Tao knelt down and looked at her feet. She wanted to pull her legs back, but when she moved slightly, she gasped in pain. "Don't move," Wang Tao said, "it's probably twisted." He said this, stretched out his fingers and carefully touched her injured area. This time, she gasped louder. "It's really twisted," Wang Tao said. "What's so good about a man like Li Lei? He promised to take you home and couldn't do it, and he made you worry about it and twisted your foot. Let me tell you, forget as soon as possible that he is a serious person." He reached out to hold her ankle. "What are you going to do?" she said, enduring the pain. "Help you set your bones," Wang Tao said. "I usually go hiking with my friends, play tennis, etc., and I am familiar with this kind of bruises. Don't be afraid, it's just a little painful, just bear with it." Okay. As he spoke, he didn't hold his hand firmly and violently broke her ankle, causing her to scream in pain. Does it hurt?" She stared at him with tears streaming down her face. "Okay, It hurts a lot. Wang Tao smiled and stretched out his hand to help her. You can't go home by yourself like this, so just let me take you there. Don't worry, I won't come in and do anything to you. What? She knew that he was making her happy, but she was not in the mood to laugh. I'm really causing trouble for you, she said softly, my lord, but I'm not in the mood to associate with other men. If this is your good purpose for me, please don't waste your time on me. Wang Tao looked at her. I wanted to date you at the beginning, but what happened tonight makes me feel a little unfair for you. Just think of me as a man of justice because of his family background and origin. He knows better than anyone what discrimination feels like. Seeing her in trouble, I couldn't help but want to help. Thought for a while, then laughed, just making friends. If you really feel sorry for me, give me a VIP seat ticket when you hold a concert another day. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 564. Chapter 564. He is different. Xiaoling was finally amused by him and said softly, okay. Wang Tao drove her home in a Bugatti Veyron. The red walls of the villa area spread all the way, the street lamps glowed warmly, and the surroundings were quiet. The car stopped in front of her house, and Wang Tao whistled, it's nice here. Is Pei Xian's residence next door? When he first drove in, he saw the word Pei written on the adjacent house plate. Xiaoling didn't respond and limped out of the car. Wang Tao quickly got out of the car and helped her open the door. She opened the door and looked at him in the courtyard covered with ivy and tuberose. Thank you for sending me home. I won't invite you to come in and sit. The crescent moon was like a hook, the stars were all over the sky, and it was almost midnight. It's 12 o'clock. Who knows what will happen to a man and a woman alone? It's better not to give any charming hints. Wang Tao supported the courtyard wall with one hand and smiled, I am not a tiger and I don't eat people. She smiled without any intention of letting go. He shrugged in frustration, well, good night, my little beauty. He took a few steps outside, opened the door of the Bugatti Veyron's cab, and turned around before getting in the car. You are the one I'm having at the dinner party today. The most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Xiaoling's smile deepened, knowing that he was deliberately making her happy. However, after hearing such words, the original sadness and depression seemed to fade a bit. I will give you VIP tickets for the concert, she said. Thanks in advance. Why aren't you leaving? She saw his slender figure leaning against the car door, showing no intention of moving. I'll wait until you enter the house before I leave. Don't you know this is a gentleman's etiquette? The smile on Wang Tao's face was a bit ruthless and charming. His family did not allow him to get involved in the business. All he could do every day was fight and dogs and play with flowers. He was very familiar with this trick of chasing girls. Xiaoling really likes this person. It's not a love between men and women, but she feels that being with him is very relaxing and there are no heavy things. She waved to him, said to be more careful on the way back, and turned to go into the house. Wang Tao was still leaning against the car door until he saw the lights in her villa come on before driving away. Xiaoling's ankle was severely swollen. Although Wang Tao had straightened the bones at the dinner party just now, the injury did not recover so quickly. The skin on his arms was also scratched, blood seeped out, and it was mottled and messy. She sat on the sofa and checked her injuries. She had just moved here a few days ago, and there was no medical kit at all. She couldn't find any way to deal with it for a while. Borrow medicine from your next door neighbor? Stop joking and don't look at who lives next door to her. She silently cursed Mr. Li for eating instant noodles without seasoning packets. What kind of brain circuit allowed her to live next door to Pei Xian? Sighing, she took off a pair of exquisite and gorgeous high heels, and hopped precariously on the cold floor with her bare feet. She went to the sink to get a towel and was about to treat her wounds. The doorbell rings. Her hand twisting the towel paused, and a flash of joy flashed in her heart. It's so late, is Lilei here? He said he would take her home, but he accidentally broke the promise. Was he here to apologize to her? She threw down the towel and quickly jumped on one foot. She almost fell another corner in her haste. Finally, she reached the door. On the porch, she looked at the fence outside the yard, and it turned out to be Pei Zion. He stood under a clump of ivy, with a dim light beside the red wall. His expression looked half-conscious, unable to distinguish between joy and anger, and his figure was still tall and like a god. "Why are you here?" she just asked without walking over. "I remember Lilei didn't own a Bugatti Veyron," Pei Zion said. "You were sent back by another man. I came over to check on you, in case something happened. The two families lived too close, and he had already ordered the security guard. Always pay attention to the movements on her side." He knew about it just after she was sent back by the car. Xiaoling said, "It's nothing." She was still bare of her white, slender feet, using only one of them to stand on the cold floor tiles. Because it was too cold, her toes were slightly curled. She rested one hand on the carved pillar in the corridor, and the summer night wind blew her thin evening dress, making her shiver. Pei Zion's eyebrows frowned slightly. "Cold?" she said. "Well, I'm going to go into the house." His eyes fell on her feet. "Are you injured?" There was no point in hiding this man. He would only make judgments based on his own subjective judgment. Since she had already been determined to be injured, it was useless for her to say anything. He said, "You can't do this, show me." Hand on the low red brick wall with one hand, he jumped over. "You," she glared at him unhappily, "this is my home." "You're injured," he just said patiently. "It's very windy here. Go inside and I'll help you treat your wound." Before leaving, Mr. Li arranged for her to live here just so that he could get to the water first. "I heard that my grandson was arranged to go on a blind date today. If he can't even grasp this convenience, then don't chase her." Xiaoling looked at him suspiciously. "Is he really that kind-hearted that he just takes care of her injuries and leaves?" "I take care of my own injuries." "You know how?" Pei Zion stopped her with just 2 words, and then said, "I do it for your own good. Are you going to open the door yourself and let me in, or should I barge in?" Xiaoling knew that whatever she said would be in vain. She opened the door with abandonment and said in a cold voice, "Pei Zion, do you think if you do this, I will be grateful to you and return to your arms?" "You have to try it before you know," he said calmly, looking down at her arms and ankles. He called Joe's mother and asked her to bring the bruise medicine that was always available at home. Ma Joe quickly brought the medicine. Pei Zion helped her sit on the sofa, lowered his head, and carefully applied medicine to her. Both of them were silent. "He's already gone on a blind date, and you still have illusions about him?" Suddenly, she heard Pei Zion ask. "He has his own reasons," Xiaoling whispered. She guessed that there must be some reason why he held a blind date party and broke his promise not to send her home. Otherwise, she really didn't believe that a person who could pray for her safety by letting go of half of his body's blood would change his mind so easily. Pei Zion's voice was a little low. "I didn't marry you back then because I had my own reasons." She raised her eyes and looked at him. Under the soft light of the living room, there was a hint of sadness in his expression. Xiaoling used his sleeve and gently took away the hand he had bandaged for her. "That's different." "What's the difference?" She couldn't explain clearly. Suddenly, she felt so empty that she felt bottomless. Pei Zion said, "It's nothing different. You know it very well in your heart. There's no need to be harsh." End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 565. Chapter 565 True and False. Xiaoling didn't want to argue with him. She gently pulled her arm out of Pei Zion's hand. "It's getting late. Thank you for coming over to bandage my wound. Go back." A very obvious expulsion order. Pei Xian looked at her deeply. Are you really stubborn? Xiaoling held the back of the sofa with one hand and stood up unsteadily. I'll take you out. Pei Xian held her down and said, I'll take you upstairs to the bedroom, and then walk by yourself. Her ankle was injured, and if a person reluctantly went upstairs, the injury would be more serious. He wanted to pick her up, but she refused, so he carefully supported her and let her lean on him, hopping forward on one foot little by little. The two bodies are very close to each other. Her body smelled of nice perfume. Pei Xian looked at her delicate and fair face and walked slowly in step with her pace, thinking how nice it would be to live like this for the rest of his life. It's a pity that now she already has someone else in her heart. Sent her to the bedroom on the second floor and helped her get into bed. I'm leaving, Pei Xian said. I'll bring breakfast to see you tomorrow morning. You can't get takeout with your feet like this. He's familiar with her daily routine and knows that she hasn't had time to hire a part-time worker yet. I eat out, and occasionally at home, I order takeout or make some instant noodles to deal with the problem. I can do it myself. She was brave. That's it. Pei Xian refused to say anything. He turned around and walked to the bedroom door, closed the door for her, and then left. Xiaoling watched him leave, feeling an indescribable feeling in her heart. Pei Xian, he has always been such a considerate man. If he hadn't been hurt in the last year of his life, maybe they would have been happy forever. Unfortunately, we are destined to never go back to the past. She wished that it would be Li Lei who sent her to bed tonight. She jumped out of bed on one foot, returned to the living room, took out her mobile phone from her exquisite handbag, and looked at the screen for the nth time, hoping to see a message or a few words from Li Lei. Nothing at all. The screen is dark, with no missed calls or text messages. The depression spread like a tide, and she no longer had the strength to jump back to the bedroom on the second floor. She curled up silently on the sofa, holding her cell phone, and managed to sleep for a night. The consequences of this sleep are serious. In the early morning, when I opened my eyes in a daze, I heard a hurried knock on the door. Xiaoling, Xiaoling. Are you at home? The very familiar voice was Pei Xian. She opened her mouth slightly and responded, but her voice was hoarse and she had a cold again. She was groggy, struggling, and tried to get out of bed. However, as soon as her legs touched the floor tiles, they felt weak, and she fell to the ground unexpectedly. At this moment, the door opened with a bang, and Pei Xian asked someone to pry it open. Pei Xian and the security guard who pried open the door looked down at her dog chewing mud on the ground. She was in a mess and looked at them speechlessly. Why did you fall here? Pei Xian was the first to react and picked her up on the ground. She lay weakly in his arms, her whole body weak and uncomfortable. Pei Xian probed her forehead. Caught a cold? She nodded weakly. He carried her back to the bed in the bedroom, let her lie down, and covered her with a quilt. I'll ask the doctor to come over and take a look at you. No, I can do it myself. She didn't want to owe him a favor. But Pei Xian said, it's already like this, why are you trying to be brave? He went to the family doctor to see her. Fortunately, it was nothing serious, and he prescribed 2 dietary supplement prescriptions. He asked Joe's mother to cook porridge and deliver it. Eat something. He brought the porridge to her bedside and fed her. She turned her head sideways. I'll do it myself. I just listened to the nonsense last night that you could do it on your own, and that's why you turned into what you are now. Pei Xian said, Xiaoling, please be honest and don't risk your life for a man who went on a blind date. Will he feel distressed if you do this? Or will his new love feel distressed? If you reject me again, I will take a photo of you looking like this and send it to Nangang Kinja. She will be very happy to see it. It is rare for him to say such a long sentence. The last paragraph really stimulated Xiaoling. She felt unbearable when she thought of how haggard she was, while Nangang Kinja was chatting and laughing with Li Lei with a radiant face. She clenched her hands unconsciously, she must get better soon. Go to Lilei and ask about this matter. Even if she is going to die, she must be a clear person. After thinking about this, he ignited his fighting spirit and cooperated with Pei Ziyan to feed him. Pei Ziyan was very familiar with her taste. The glutinous rice porridge cooked by Jo Ma was sweet and delicious. She ate a big bowl without knowing it, sweated a little, became tired, and fell into a deep sleep. Pei Ziyan was guarding him beside the bed. Not long after, a security guard came up and whispered something in his ear. Pei Ziyan's eyes darkened slightly, and he whispered, "I know, let him come in after a while. Also, go next door and get a piece of my pajamas, and be quick." The security guard responded. The person who was put up was Lilei. Still wearing the formal dress from last night, with a haggard look and a slight stubble. He had a very unhappy night last night. He finally got out of bed early in the morning and hurried to Xiaoling's villa without even changing his clothes. Downstairs, he saw Pei Ziyan's security guard guarding the door. Servants are busy in the kitchen. Lilei had an ominous premonition in his heart. Opening the door to the bedroom, she saw that it was Pei Ziyan inside, wearing a long black silk satin nightgown, faintly revealing his firm skin and chest. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, and on the large and soft bed, Xiaoling was sleeping quietly with her eyes closed. The duvet was pulled to her chest carelessly, revealing her white and bare shoulders, as if she was wearing nothing. Lilei's brain exploded. "What are you doing?" he asked Pei Ziyan angrily, as if facing a life-or-death enemy. As if he had just seen him, Pei Ziyan turned his head and raised his eyebrows slightly. "Is it you? Keep your voice down, don't wake up Xiaoling." He glanced at the sleeping person on the bed gently, and stood up calmly. "Let's go out and talk." No matter how angry Lilei was, he couldn't express it when he looked at her sleeping on the bed. Even though her heart was in turmoil and she thought about countless things that happened to her last night, she could only hold back her anger and left the bedroom with Pei Ziyan and went to an empty room. Lilei's eyes looked like he wanted to eat someone. "Pei Ziyan, you'd better give me an explanation." "Is there any need to explain? Things are just as you see them." Pei Ziyan's voice was slightly hoarse, with a hint of imperceptible sarcasm. "Xiaoling gave birth to a child for me. Do you think that kind of relationship can be broken off at once? The child is dead. She fell into your arms because she was angry with me. In fact, it was just to stimulate me. She doesn't take you seriously now. It's normal for her to sleep with me again." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 566. Chapter 566 Small Accident. Xiaoling heard her cell phone ringing. She felt dizzy, changed her position, buried her head in the quilt, and continued to sleep. The cell phone continued to ring, in an unyielding manner. She finally couldn't help but picked up the answer and asked in a nasal voice, "Hello. Where are you? Do you know what time it is now? We made an appointment a week ago and there will be an announcement on the TV station today. Now the whole program team is waiting for you. You are limited to half an hour. Come here quickly." There was a roar coming from inside. Xiaoling was so frightened that her hands shook and she almost dropped her phone. After calming herself down, she recognized Lin Yunan's voice. "I have a cold," she said weakly. "Cold? If you are infected with the zombie virus, please come and die." Lin Yunan was very irritable. "Do you know Peace TV? No one bigger than you dare to let them go." Xiaoling then remembered that something like this had happened, and she almost wanted to cry. "Okay, I'll die," she said with a tearful voice on the phone. She endured the discomfort and got out of bed. She was top-heavy and almost tripped. When she looked down, she realized that she was still wearing the champagne-colored off-the-shoulder evening dress from last night's dinner party. The dress was dirty, wrinkled and in disarray due to several falls. It's too late to take a shower. She changed into clean clothes as quickly as possible, tied her long hair into a ponytail, stuffed it into a peaked cap, picked up her sunglasses and limped out the door. Out of the bedroom door, passing by an empty room. The sound of arguing came from the ajar door. She suspected that she was hearing hallucinations. Why was there a thunderous voice? By some strange mistake, he went to open the door, only to see that it was Lilei, at war with Peizian over some unknown reason. Both of them looked bad. Seeing her come in, the two men were silent for a moment. Xiaoling, Lilei was the first to react. Why are you with him? Xiaoling bit her lip. She sprained her foot, fell ill, and was sad all night. She waited for news from him all night. As a result, when they met, he asked her why she was with Peizian. You've already left with Nangang Kinja, and you still don't allow me to find someone else, she couldn't help but contradict him. Lilei's face suddenly darkened. Originally, he had imagined that maybe the scenes he saw in the bedroom were all Peizian's words, but unexpectedly, she admitted that she had found another man. His hands secretly clenched into fists at his side. Xiaoling was so sick that she felt groggy, had a headache, sore throat and ankle pain, and was in a bad mood. She was being urged by her manager as if she was urging her to die. She didn't even notice the strange atmosphere or the abnormality in Peizian's clothes. She turned around and walked out the door. You guys chat while I make the announcement. I'll see you off. Peizian stepped forward as a gentleman. No need, Xiaoling refused. I have my own car. She had already put her red Porsche in the garage of the villa, and she usually drove her car when she came in and out. You have been working hard for so long last night, and your body is still very weak. How can you drive alone? Peizian's voice was low and ambiguous. Or, I can ask the driver to take you off. Lilei's expression turned even more ugly. Why did he spend so much time last night? He looked at Xiaoling and said through gritted teeth, don't get in his car, I'll take you there. If there hadn't been that not allowed, maybe Xiaoling would have let him give it away. Unfortunately, that commanding tone aroused her temper. Lilei, can you do whatever you want? If you want me to listen to you, I have to listen to you. You told me to wait for you last night. Okay, I wait, but what about you? What qualifications do you have to continue to order me? Lilei wanted to say something. Xiaoling's cell phone rang again. She took it out and saw that it was still Lin Yunan. She pressed reject hard and said stiffly to Lilei, Lilei, I'm very busy now and don't want to quarrel with you. Neither of you two should give me a gift. I have my own hands and feet. Goodbye. After she finished speaking, she continued to limp downstairs with a lot of anger. Xiaoling, Lilei wanted to chase her. Peizian stretched out his hand to stop her. Lilei, it's time to talk about the problems between us. Now that you have Nangang Kinja, stop pestering Xiaoling and let her be with someone who can give her happiness. Who? You, Lilei laughed angrily. Peizian, are you shameless? The two started arguing again. In a few words, Xiaoling had already gone downstairs and went to the garage to drive out the Porsche. She was sick, driving very slowly, and the sound of the two men's argument echoed in her mind, like the buzzing of 10,000 ducks. Even with all the extra caution, an accident happened. Her Porsche hit a Cadillac, and the front of the car was seriously deformed. Fortunately, there were no casualties. A man and a woman got out of the Cadillac. The man was wearing a floral shirt, hugging the woman with heavy makeup, looking like he was looking for trouble. Xiaoling resisted her headache and opened the car door in a daze. Sir, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do it. I will compensate you for your losses according to the price. This is my assistant's business card. You can contact. Before she finished speaking, the other party had already recognized her, Yasin Ling. She was startled, then realized that she was really sick and confused, and she didn't even wear sunglasses when she got out of the car. "It's me," she tried her best to be polite. "I'm in a hurry, please contact my assistant." "I think it won't be so troublesome." The other party smiled meaningfully, pushed the business card back into her palm, and caressed her delicate and soft little hand without letting go. "It's just a small scratch, miss. Yeah, don't mind. Just treat us as friends and go have a cup of coffee together, okay?" Xiaoling instinctively retracted her hand, knowing in her heart that she was in trouble, and she didn't know which dandy she had gotten into again. She looked at the other person and her face darkened. "I'm really in a hurry, so I'll leave first." Speaking, he was about to get back into the car. "This is on a scenic thoroughfare, it is not a rush hour, and there are few vehicles." The young man pushed her further and took her arm. "Don't be like this, it's just a cup of coffee, how about a favor?" She found that she couldn't leave and scolded the other person to be more respectful, but the other person obviously didn't take it to heart. Even his female companion playfully persuaded, "Miss, yeah, brother Long is really nice and we won't treat you badly. Let's have fun together. It's lively. Don't be so airy. How much do you want? Make a price." What did they take her for? She couldn't hold the other party back, and the other party wouldn't listen to her reasoning. In desperation, she took out her exquisite mobile phone from the cab and quickly pressed 110. "I called the police," she said coldly. "Let the police handle this accident." End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 567. Chapter 567 Confrontation. The other party was obviously taken aback, as he didn't expect her attitude to be so strong. The young man stopped his hands in dismay and spat, "What the hell, isn't he just a singer?" He got into the car with his female companion and drove away. Xiaoling's heart was beating wildly. She was so unlucky that her teeth were clogged when she drank water. Fortunately, she used the police to scare the other party away. She started the car, but it couldn't start. It seemed that she had to contact a tow truck. He was very anxious to deal with the accident here, and because he called the police, he was interrogated by the police for a long time. This delay made it impossible to catch up with the original announcement on the TV station. Lin Yunan drove his car to pick her up and scolded her bloody. She lowered her head and listened to him scolding without saying a word, feeling depressed. He finally realized something was wrong. "What's wrong with you? You didn't seem to be such a careless person before." Xiaoling asked, "How did you find out about the charity dinner last night?" "It was basically a blind date banquet held by Mr. Li for Li Lei. Even rich and famous ladies were not eligible to enter. I was almost kicked out." Lin Yunan was stunned. "What?" He parked the car directly on the side of the road, made a loud phone call and started investigating. Finally, he hung up the phone with an ugly look on his face. "We were tricked by old man Li. It was true that he announced a charity banquet. The inside story about the blind date, not a single rumor has been leaked. He is probably deliberately trying to trick you, hoping that you will not be able to get off the stage and realize the difference between you and Li Lei, so that you can give up completely." Xiaoling was silent for a moment. "Do you suspect that Mr. Li sent someone to send me the invitation letter?" "Who else besides him?" Lin Yunan said. "It can't be Li Lei." Thinking of Li Lei's behavior this morning, Xiaoling's mood became even lower. Why, even though he had a good date last night, could he still have the confidence to blame her this morning? She had been waiting for him all night. She was injured, sick, and was weak and unable to prevent Pei Xian from breaking in. Isn't it all her fault? What else could she do in the situation last night? Perhaps, she shouldn't be so kind to Pei Xian. However, even if they broke up, she could never regard him as an enemy. How could the years of staying together, the kindness of adoption, and the kindness of saving lives be erased? Besides, he came to take care of her last night. When she was looking forward to Lilei so much, but Lilei didn't show up. She lowered her head, feeling sad. Lin Yunan asked her carefully what happened at last night's blind date party. She told the truth, leaving out everything that happened after the party. Lin Yunan breathed a sigh of relief. Didn't you get kicked out? It doesn't matter. Lilei also recognized you as a god brother. When doing publicity in the future, he can mention that you are Du Yunfan's god sister, which will also increase his worth. He was only thinking about fame and fortune, and he didn't care much about her emotional world. Xiaoling had known for a long time that he was such a person, so she didn't argue and just said softly, "Don't mention Du Yunfan in publicity. He didn't like me. He was just following the rules in a hurry. He would probably turn around and deny it this matter." Lin Yunan said rudely, "So, we didn't get anything from this banquet." Her head felt a dull pain. "I'm sick, I don't feel well, let's take a nap." Only then did Lin Yunan notice that she looked pale and probed her forehead. "I'll take you to the hospital. You have to stay awake for me. There's a night scene to be shot for a promotional video tonight. If you want to die, you can make it through tonight." Xiaoling. Although I knew he was joking, I felt even worse. When she was sick in her last life, Pei Ziyan rarely gave her medicine, saying that the medicine was not good, so he nursed her back to health slowly. When it really doesn't work, I try my best to give her traditional Chinese medicine and don't use antibiotics. Later on, when he was with Lilei, he let her go when she didn't take medicine. However, Lin Yunan was different. He didn't care about healthcare. He took her directly to the hospital, gave her an intravenous drip, and took antibiotics. He said, "As soon as you get in the car, go to the back seat and hurry up to sleep. The promotional video at night is also from Peace TV. You have already let go of other people's pigeons once during the day. If you let them go again at night, don't cooperate in the future." She nodded drowsily and really took the time to sleep in the car. Perhaps the medicine has taken effect. When I woke up, I felt more energetic. Although I was still a little top-heavy, if I paid more attention, it wouldn't affect the filming. In the wilderness, there are no houses. The crew deployed 2 container trucks for artists and staff to rest. With the help of a makeup artist, Xiaoling put on makeup and put on costumes. She worked hard to shoot. Coupled with her high professionalism, even though she was ill, she was able to shoot most of the shots in one go. Some scenes were shot several times over and over again just because the director wanted to capture the scene from multiple angles. Then it's time to change the scenery. The artist and stage manager were busy coming and going, and if they had nothing to do for her for the time being, she retreated to a nearby container truck to rest. When she was just filming, she probably caught a cold due to the wind. Her headache got worse, her temples bulged, and her nerves felt like they were about to explode. She got on the container. It was dark inside, except for a dim and yellow flashlight on the table, which shone faintly. She walked towards the flashlight, wanting to pick it up and look around. She remembered that she had seen a blanket when she was putting on makeup. If she could find it and put it on her body, she would feel better. Unexpectedly, before I could reach the flashlight, suddenly, the container door closed with a creak. "Who?" She was frightened and turned around suddenly. In the darkness on the other side of the door, a person slowly walked out. He was as handsome as a top male model with a face and figure. He was wearing dark clothes. It was Lilei. He looked at her and called softly, "Xiaoling. What are you doing here?" Xiaoling was so frightened by him that her voice was filled with anger. He took a few steps forward and said, "Let me see if you are okay. Also, let me ask you, why are you with Pei Ziyan? He just missed the date for one night, and she let Pei Ziyan get into her bed. It made Li Lei very heartbroken, and there was also an uncontrollable anger. Their relationship was really so fragile? Even if he worked hard for so long, couldn't he compare to her past and present life with Pei Ziyan, and the child they conceived together? Is it true that she will go back to that man at any time? Xiaoling looked at him with a sad and angry expression. Are you here to ask me this? Why don't you explain what you did last night? Li Lei, do you know I'm waiting for you? Why did I hit you? You don't even answer my phone calls. I never received your call, Li Lei said. Xiaoling, when did you call me? It was just after the banquet. Xiaoling looked at him. I called several times. How could you not receive it? Li Lei, you didn't tell me that you were going on a blind date, and you refused to answer my call. I'm so happy. I made a date and sent another woman home. What do you think I am? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 568. Chapter 568. Can't wait. I really didn't receive it, Li Lei said, taking out the phone and showing it to her. On the mobile phone, she is indeed not in the call history, but Nangang Kinja is. Xiaoling stared at those 4 words, anger welling up in her heart. She couldn't help but look through the chat history under that name. She saw the text message, Master Li, thank you for your company tonight, I had a great time, looking forward to it, see you next time. Li Lei replied with a smiley face. Xiaoling raised her head and glared at him. You're so nice to her, in a very aggrieved tone. Li Lei was very anxious. Listen to me. At this moment, his cell phone rang, and the caller ID still read Nangang Kinja. Without waiting for Li Lei's reaction, Xiaoling answered the call directly and said to the other end of the phone, Nangang Kinja, I advise you to give up. Li Lei is my boyfriend, not yours. Hang up the phone viciously. Xiaoling, Li Lei was displeased and took the phone back. Xiaoling looked at her empty palms and looked at the man in front of her in disbelief. You blame me? I will handle my own affairs, Li Lei said in a serious tone. The old man told him to treat Nangang Kinja well. If that woman went to complain to the old man, his relationship with Xiaoling would be in trouble again. He looked at her and said, You're so impulsive. You blame me for being impulsive. Her eyes were filled with mist. Li Lei, have you changed your mind? How could I change my mind? Then you don't answer my phone calls and you're still having an affair with another woman. I told you I didn't receive your call, Li Lei said anxiously. Xiaoling, my mobile phone signal is sent and received through a special satellite band. Grandpa can easily intercept your call and not let me know. She shook her head, not knowing whether to believe him or not. But you promised to send me home, but you didn't send me, but sent Nangang Kinja. She said she lives in a remote place, sprained her foot, and is scared to be alone. In that case, I can only send her away. If she is unhappy and complains to Grandpa, Grandpa will only take out his anger on you, Li Lei said. Is she sprained? Xiaoling asked in a low voice, and smiled again, a little sarcastically. I saw you yesterday, she didn't look like she had a sprain. It was her who fell solidly and was bitten by a dog. Mew Mew, injured to the point of limping and unable to walk. Li Lei, do you believe her level of lies? I can't help but believe it. Li Lei became even more irritated. I can only let Grandpa treat you well if I treat her well. Treat me well? Xiaoling asked. How to treat me well? Hold a blind date banquet for you and call me to the scene to humiliate me. Li Lei, why can't you refuse that blind date banquet? That's the exchange between me and my grandfather, Li Lei said. In the next 3 years, I will follow his arrangements and go on a blind date. If I still don't have the right person after 3 years, I can marry you. You're lying. Your grandfather promised me that as long as I live next door to Pei Ziyan for 3 years, he will let me in. Let you in? Xiaoling, didn't you find the loophole in this? Letting you in does not mean that he agrees to our marriage. He can marry you to a side branch, or something else. What can you do? I have Tian went to negotiate with Grandpa to make up for this loophole, and had no choice but to agree to his blind date conditions, Li Lei said. Xiaoling didn't expect that things would turn out like this, that Mr. Li would be so insidious and use the same thing to threaten both her and Li Lei. But, why didn't you tell me? I'm afraid you'll have random thoughts. If it weren't for the forged invitation, Xiaoling wouldn't have known about his blind date at all. When the incident passed calmly, she would still be unconsciously dependent on him for her happiness. Why bother adding to your troubles? However, Xiaoling said, I've been scared since last night. Li Lei, do you know that I feel very uncomfortable? I would rather you tell me the truth than live in the fear of losing you. Li Lei looked down at her. In the dim light of the container, her cheeks were pale, and her eyes were filled with light mist, which was heartbreaking. He couldn't help but stretched out his arms to hug her and kissed her gently. I'm sorry for making you feel wronged. He changed the subject and said, but, Xiaoling, shouldn't you also explain to me what happened to Pei Ziyan? Me and Pei Ziyan? Xiaoling was slightly startled and wiped the tears from her eyes. It's just a coincidence. He found out that I was injured last night and came to take care of me. Li Lei, if you don't care about me, why don't you let others care about me? The last sentence was aggrieved as he spoke, with a hint of coquettishness. Li Lei heard it as a complaint, and his voice became deeper. Have you taken care of the bed? What are you talking about? Xiaoling's eyes widened slightly. Li Lei, who do you think I am? You gave him a son. His voice was hoarse, and he couldn't help but not believe it. What Pei Ziyan said this morning was reasonable and reasonable. He was still in her bedroom wearing pajamas. When she woke up and saw it, she didn't feel anything abnormal. Maybe in this emotional game, he is really just an outsider. Li Lei tightened his arms around her. Her nose began to feel sore again. It turned out that her son had become her sin. Did he know what kind of desperate situation she was in to protect the child, but still let the child die in the end? She was so sad, but had nowhere to speak. She was even afraid that he would be sad, so she had to hide the child's life experience. But, he cares so much. Just tell him the truth. Tell him that the child is not Pei Ziyan's, but his own. Is it true that the thorn in his heart will fade away? But, if you say it, what does the previous persistence mean? He has already endured so much jealousy and pain. Does he have to endure the pain of losing a son again? She was very confused. Why don't you speak? Li Lei raised her chin, feeling very sad. Xiaoling, I've only been away for one night, and you're back with that man. Have you ever considered my feelings? Have I not considered your feelings enough? She said with a cry. Li Lei looked at her deeply and said in a hoarse voice, do you consider my feelings? Just use them to prove it. He couldn't wait to leave his mark and wash away the scene he saw in the bedroom this morning. Otherwise, whenever he thinks about her being so close to Pei Ziyan, he will go crazy. Li Lei, you're crazy, Xiaoling screamed and pushed him. This is the location, a container shared by the crew. What is he going to do here? If someone catches you. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 569. Chapter 569. Li Lei's soul is weak. It was very dark inside the container. She knocked over the flashlight and hit the floor with a loud noise. Afraid of disturbing others, she said in a tearful tone, Li Lei, let me go. But he wouldn't let go. She is very beautiful. That kind of beauty is not glamorous in the worldly sense, but as delicate and exquisite as jade, which can withstand carving, like a flawless work of art. No matter how many times he watched it, it always fascinated him. He persisted and finished what he wanted to do. Xiaoling, his voice was low, with a magical hoarseness in the darkness, you are mine. For a while, she was in a daze, her body seemed not to be her own, and even his voice seemed to come from a distant place. Then, I heard the sound of someone tapping the container. Yasin Ling. Yasin Ling, are you in there? It's your turn, come on. Director, I have searched everywhere, but I can't find Yasin Ling. This fan, the container door cannot be opened. Could something have happened to her inside? There was more rapid knocking on the door, and someone tried to knock it twice. Xiaoling was so excited that she hurriedly pushed Li Lei away and shouted with a higher voice, I'm touching up my makeup, I'll be out soon. Hurry up, the people outside stopped. She stumbled to get the flashlight in the distance. In the darkness, she tripped over something and fell to the ground. All the bones in her body ached. There was blood coming out of the wrist. She covered her wrists and huddled next to the weak light of the flashlight, tears bursting into her eyes. Where did you fall? Let me see. Li Lei turned over and squatted in front of her to check her wounds. Xiaoling waved his hand away. Li Lei, she cried, yes, that child is Pei Xian's, yes, 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 you are right. Are you satisfied now? Her face was filled with tears, and her makeup was a mess. Every part of my body was hurting, and even my voice was shaking with pain. Do you think I can be bullied casually because I don't have a family background or a strong backer? He did not dare not send Nangong Kinja home because she was the eldest daughter of the Nangong family. He did not dare to disobey the old man's order because the old man had great power. What about her? Is it okay for him to do whatever he wants to her, to come and go at a moment's notice, even to bully her casually in such a wilderness? The tears fell down like broken beads. She wiped them randomly with her bleeding hands, and her face became even more stained. While crying, she groped for the makeup table in the corner of the container, washed her face with cold water, took off her makeup and started putting it on again. The light of the flashlight was very dim, but even that still showed her swollen eyes like walnuts, which made her really unable to see anyone. She forced herself to stop crying. In the artist industry, there is no freedom of joy and sorrow. You must control yourself even when you want to cry. She endured the cold water temperature, twisted a towel and applied it to her eyes. After a while, she took it off and quickly put on a smoky makeup amidst the urging from outside the door. She rarely wears such heavy makeup and looks decadent and desolate. The knock on the door was louder. This time it was Lin Yunan. Yasin Ling, hurry up. I don't have a long career, but I have a lot of heirs. Can you have some professional ethics? She responded with a sigh of relief, it'll be fine soon. Swallowing back the sobs in her voice, she searched a wide circle on the ground before she found the clothes that had been thrown aside. She put it on and tried her best to smooth out the wrinkles on it. After seeing that she was almost done, she went to open the door of the container. Xiaoling in the darkness, Li Lei called her hoarsely. Her steps paused, but she did not look back and walked out despite the pain all over her body. Lin Yunan scolded her for a while, and the director and several other staff members didn't look good. She apologized to everyone, cheered up and started shooting seriously. Finally, because she could take all the shots at once, everyone's attitude softened a bit. When I finished work, it was almost 3 o'clock in the morning. Lin Yunan found a large soft and thick blanket from somewhere and wrapped it around her body. What's wrong? What happened just now? And I cried a lot. Do you think there will be no one with such thick smoky makeup? Can you tell? As soon as you started shooting, there were gossips over there checking the container. Xiaoling was in a low mood and walked forward with her head buried, not wanting to talk. Lin Yunan asked, Li Lei or Pei Xian? These two are the only ones who can make you cry. They also directly moved the container truck away, and the people who were looking for gossip were all in vain. Xiaoling finally spoke, her voice hoarse, "I'm very tired and want to take a vacation." On vacation, Lin Yunan escorted her into his car, and said as he started the car, "I think it's a good idea for you. There will be a talk show at noon tomorrow, live broadcast. Even if you are going to die, you have to finish the show before you die." "Xiaoling, didn't you say during the day that I could die after participating in tonight's filming?" "Lin Yunan, do you believe me when I lie to you?" He simply stopped the car and pulled out her itinerary from his notebook to read. "However, if you insist on holding on until noon tomorrow, you can really go and rest. I don't have a big schedule, so I can arrange it. Take good care of yourself. The concert will be held in a few days. It's your first solo concert. Please be very energetic and don't be half dead." He talked a lot. Xiaoling didn't listen much and curled up in the back seat and fell asleep. Lin Yunan sent her home, and when he carried her upstairs, he noticed the red marks on her neck. He was startled at first, and then cursed angrily, that Lilei doesn't want to live anymore? He dares to mess around with my people. Now, he was sure that it was Lilei and not Pei Zion. Pei Zion was so old-fashioned and boring, and he didn't seem like someone who could do such a thing. Lin Yunan began to seriously consider whether it was a good idea to move Xiaoling from Tianyi to the emperor for her career as a queen. Xiaoling didn't know how long she slept. She had a lot of messy dreams. When she woke up, her cheeks were covered with tears. In front of him was Lin Yunan's enlarged face. "Auntie, you've finally woken up. I was afraid that you had overslept, and I didn't even dare to go home to stay with you, so I asked you to get up. Come on, take a shower, put on clothes, put on makeup, and go out. It's too late for lunch. I'll give it to you." I bought a sandwich and ate it in the car. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 570. Chapter 570. Xiaomoyan under the swing. Xiaoling was still ill. Under the care of Lin Yunan, she took cold medicine and sandwiches and managed to go to the scene. There are many people in the live broadcast room, including the host, staff, and viewers. She steeled herself to answer the host's questions and forced herself not to lose focus, but she gradually became a little dazed. The host Chiao smiled and said, "Each of us will miss someone at some point in our lives. I wonder if Xiaoling has anyone she misses recently." She replied subconsciously, "I miss home, I miss my brother." Is it true that if Xiaomoyan was here, no one would dare to bully her? I heard that the Xia family is very powerful. Can you protect her from harm? The host said, "I've never heard of Xiaoling. Do you have a brother?" "My cousin from the country." She brought up the subject. But he was a little self-deprecating in his heart. My brother kept their relationship so secretive, because he didn't want others to know about it, right? What's the use of missing him? You still have to rely on yourself. Finished the program in a daze. Lin Yunan gave her a holiday, and she fell asleep when she got home. At midnight, I woke up for some reason. Through the curtains, I could faintly see light coming from outside. She opened the curtains a crack and looked down. In the courtyard on the first floor, sitting on a swing next to the ivy and red wall, was a handsome man in white clothes. The moonlight shone on him, quietly. To indifference. "Brother?" she whispered. "No way, you only said you wanted to see him on the show during the day, and he showed up at night." She grabbed a coat and put it on her body, and hurried downstairs. When I got to the yard, I took a closer look and saw that it was indeed Xiaomoyan. The summer night wind was a bit chilly, but he was wearing a thin white shirt, but he didn't seem to be cold at all. Turning around to see Xiaoling, her eyes were also calm and calm. "Why are you here?" Xiaoling asked him. "I heard you wanted to see me." His voice was as cold as ever. Xiaoling then realized that the person in front of her had great supernatural powers, and he could probably know everything she said. However, a few hours ago, she wanted to see him so much, and when she really saw him, looking at his calm appearance, she felt that there was nothing to say. They, brother and sister, had not grown up together since they were young. She and he were not as familiar with Wei Shaiyin, Lin Yunan, and the others. She whispered, "Thank you for coming. I was, just capricious at noon and had nothing to do with you. I caused you trouble." Xiaomoyan stood up from the swing. Silver moonlight streamed down on him. "Come here," he said. Xiaoling looked at him puzzled. He pointed to the swing, "Sit." She didn't know what he was going to do, so she sat on it. This was the first time she had sat on a swing since she moved to this villa. The rattan seat and armrests were very comfortable and swaying. Xiaomoyan walked around behind her and pushed the swing gently. "When I was a child, I always wanted a sister. I could play with my sister and push her on the swing." Xiaomoyan's voice came through the pleasant squeaking of the rattan swing chair. "Later, my mother did give birth to a sister. It's you, Xiaoling. But I can't play with you. My father said that you are a phoenix, and you are destined to be alone and widowed, so you should stay as far away from your family as possible." Xiaoling didn't expect that he would tell her this here and now, so she just said softly. Xiaomoyan pushed the swing up and down. "Father abandoned you. Actually, I know where you are. But I can only watch you from a distance. Watching you being bullied by the children from the Xia family branch." Later, when she went to the orphanage, she would fight by herself and occupy the swing thinking of the past. Xiaoling's eyes were full of nostalgia. "Yes, I thought the life was so difficult and painful at that time, but now I think about it, it's not the same kind of happiness." Xiaomoyan said, "Sometimes I see you swinging alone on the swing in the orphanage. I really want to go over and push you. I imagine what it will feel like when my palm touches your little back. Swing, will it swing high, will you scream with joy? But I dare not." The rattan swing made an ancient creaking sound. Silver moonlight is everywhere. Xiaomoyan's slender figure intertwined with her slender figure on the ground. He continued, "People of Suanmen know how terrible the power of fate is. If you say you are a widower or a widower, you will be punished by a widower. I can't touch you, not even a little bit. It will be a disaster like the earth shattering." Xiaoling said, yes, she didn't have a deep understanding of metaphysics. At this time, it sounded more or less unreal, but she understood that her brother was not lying to her. Xiaomoyan said, "I asked my father, when can I get to know you? Father, maybe in the next life. Only after the next life, after the Phoenix Nirvana, may there be a chance of improvement. I asked my father, when will you get to Nirvana? My father was silent for a long time. Tell me, among all the phoenixes in the family, Nirvana has never been successful." His tone was still calm, but Xiaoling could hear a lot of heaviness in it. "Nirvana has never been successful? That is to say, at that time, you would never have the chance to push me on the swing, and I would never be able to recognize my family, right?" "Yes," Xiaomoyan said. "Later on, I stopped secretly going to the orphanage to see you. I was afraid that if you accidentally recognized me, what would you do if something went wrong? I would rather never be able to push it for you with my own hands. Swing, I just hope you are safe, even if you are somewhere where I can't see you." His voice is so calm. Xiaoling felt warmth flowing through her heart. "Brother," she said softly, placing her feet on the ground, and turned around to look at him. Under the moonlight, Xiaomoyan's face was calm. "Later, you were adopted by Pei Zian and praised as a queen by him. I was very happy, and my father was also very happy. Because this means that even if we don't have close contact with you, we can often learn about you. Your news. Me, my father, and my mother, everyone is paying attention to you. What kind of people are father and mother? Xiaoling asked. A very good person. A smile appeared on Xiaomoyan's usually calm face. My father is very strict with me because I am his successor. He asked me to stand outside the door in the snow and memorize the astrolabe. But he treats you very well and saves a lot of dowry for you. Every time he goes out, he takes back any beautiful gems, antiques, islands. The Pei family and the Li family may not even be able to afford an equivalent betrothal gift. There was a hint of pride in his words. Xiaoling whispered, I don't want a dowry, I just want the people I like, and the people who like me. Everyone will be fine. End of this chapter.